we will start now as our speakers has all logged in. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly take your seats as our event will commence shortly. I would like to invite all the participants to fill up the front seats. Details of the program have been circulated to all the participants during the registration and through email for those who attend virtually. Please do not forget to put your mobile phone in silent mode throughout the seminar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Sabirin bin Jaafar, our Director General, Maritime Institute of Malaysia, distinguished speakers and moderators, honorable guests, as well as ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of MIMA, it gives us great pleasure to extend to all of you a very warm welcome to this seminar entitled Enhancing Resilience for Sustainable Ocean in the Indo-Pacific, Interventions and Opportunities. We are pleased to have your attention by attending this seminar, both in person here in Putrajaya and virtually from elsewhere. First and foremost, we wish to express our deepest gratitude to the Embassy of Japan in Malaysia for their generosity and steadfast support for MIMA to host this seminar today. We would like also to extend our deepest gratitude to all the experts today for taking the time to share their knowledge and views on this topic. To be successfully resilient for a sustainable ocean certainly requires a continuous and concerted effort from all the relevant backgrounds and countries. That is, we believe, will be the main highlight of our seminar today. To begin the seminar, we are honored to invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Sabirin bin Jaafar, the Director General of Maritime Institute of Malaysia, to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Yang Berbahagia Datuk.
Thank you, Arlis. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Embassy of Japan in Malaysia for entrusting MIMA to organize this seminar titled Enhancing Resilience for Sustainable Ocean in the Indo-Pacific, Interventions and Opportunities. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this seminar. Sustainable ocean is an important goal for Malaysia and also within Japan's Free and Open Indo-Pacific Strategy, or FOIP. In this regard, the seminar today aims at realizing the FOIP strategy and Malaysia's goals in protecting the marine environment, biodiversity, as well as addressing climate change in the region through knowledge dissemination, dialogues, and information sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, the climate is changing, and it is anticipated that this trend will continue for the rest of the century. The magnitude of climate change in the next few decades will depend primarily on the amount of greenhouse gases emitted globally and on the remaining uncertainty in the sensitivity of the Earth climate to the emissions. With significant reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases, global annual average temperature rise could be limited to 2% or less. However, without major reductions in these emissions, the increase in annual average global temperatures relative to pre-industrial times could reach 5 degrees Celsius or more by the end of this century, as reported in a study by the World Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change impacts the natural habitat, system, processes, and the people. Consequently, it affects our daily activities. It is anticipated that the effects of climate change in the upcoming decades cannot be completely prevented, even with the strictest adoption of mitigating measures. Without immediate mitigation, the effects of climate change are anticipated to be more severe and make adaptation difficult for certain natural systems. While it will be extremely costly for most man-made systems, developing countries, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, are vulnerable to these threats emanating from the climate change. The degradation of coastal and marine ecosystem threatens, in particular, indigenous peoples and local communities' physical, economic, and food security. Therefore, Malaysia's national policy on climate change encourages the effective application of both adaptation and mitigation in a coordinated and balanced manner. It is of utmost importance to ensure the Indo-Pacific region is resilient and able to sustain the environment, provide a balanced livelihood for coastal community, and towards a healthy ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, urgent action and sharing of information and best practices are required to leverage, expedite, and scale up the necessary interventions for coastal adaptation and resilient building. The ocean offers a chance of concerted work on adaptation and mitigation strategies to increase resilience and generate co-benefits. However, there are still considerable knowledge gaps pertaining to numerous elements of adaptation, which offer challenges for developing nations in particular. Civil society, research institutes, international organizations, regional commissions, and sea conventions, governments, and other stakeholders play a significant role in addressing adaptation knowledge gaps through the implementation of transformational action. Ladies and gentlemen, I am optimistic that the insights, knowledge, and views and sharing of best practices and experiences for Malaysia, Japan, and region today will help further in shaping and streamlining actions on bolstering and enhancing resilience for the sustainable ocean in the Indo-Pacific. I would like to thank the Embassy of Japan in Kuala Lumpur in joining MIMA to support the seminar. With that, thank you very much, and I wish you all a fruitful seminar today. Thank you.
Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Sabirin for your inspiring speech. Datuk, please remain on stage as we will have our photo session. So therefore, we would like to invite Ms. Sumati Permal, our Senior Fellow of Maritime Institute of Malaysia, speakers and moderators that are here with us physically today to be on stage, as well as those in virtual, to switch on your camera and poses with your biggest smile. Thank you, everyone. You may remain in your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be having a 20 minutes coffee break outside this hall while preparing for our first session. Kindly be noted that we will start again sharp at 9:45 a.m. Malaysian time. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We hope everyone, including our virtual participants, is ready to begin the seminar. Our seminar today will be divided into 2 sessions, each featuring 3 speakers and 1 moderator. The topic for our first session is common themes and regional differences in climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. During this session, we will explore the vision of healthy and resilient oceans by having a further understanding of the impact of climate change adaptation in reference to the needs required by the region. For this first session, the moderator will be Professor Dr. Frederlin Tangang from the Department of Earth Sciences and Environment, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Professor Frederlin is currently the head of the department. He obtained his PhD from the University of British Columbia, Canada, and was also the recipient of Malaysia's Best 2021 Award for the scientific paper category. His recent experience was being elected as the Vice Chair of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. He was involved in the AR6 as a review editor, as well as a contributing author of the IPCC Atlas. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Frederlin from the Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, the moderator for this session, as well as Ms. Shararita Kaur, our fellow from the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, to accompany Professor Frederlin on stage to start the seminar.
Thank you, Madam MC. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Sabirin Japa, Director General MIMA, Sumati Permal, Miss Sumati Permal, Fellow MIMA, my colleague here, Cheryl, ladies, Datuk, ladies and gentlemen, many familiar faces here. We have Datuk Prof. Nuraini, all the way from UMT, and of course the speakers online as well as present here. Thank you for inviting me into this very important event, especially to moderate this first session, common themes and regional differences in climate change adaptation and mitigation. Nowadays, almost everyone talking about climate change. Every country is big and small, developing, and Datuk DG already highlighted us some of the things that always been mentioned about where we are right now. According to the IPCC latest report, that in terms of global mean temperature, we are already at 1.1 or 1.2 degree above pre-industrial, and to get us back to the target of Paris Agreement, which is to limit the warming by 1.5 degree. We need to reduce the emission, which is currently more than 50 gigaton annually, to 20 to 30 gigaton by 2030. This is a huge commitment. And as mentioned by Datuk DG, despite the effort, we are not that confident that mitigation will solve everything. So adaptation is important, especially in the ocean, in the coastal area, where perhaps maritime nation like Malaysia is going to be affected in the future. So today, I'm tasked to moderate this together with my colleague here, which of course she will moderate the next session. All of my speakers here, actually, the speaker of this session are online, unfortunately. And we have 3 distinguished speakers. First, Dr. Engineer Dr. Lee Hin Lee. She's the director of Coastal and Oceanography Research Center at the National Water Research Institute of Malaysia, or NAHRIM. I know her actually because she was my former student, PhD student, and she's an expert on modeling of water quality. The second distinguished speaker, Dr. Rupesh Bomia, I hope I pronounced that correctly. He is the scientist at the Center for International Research, Forestry Research, C4, located, of course, in Indonesia. And he has been working on blue carbon and climate change, expert in in climate change and energy and low carbon development group. So he has done many things. And finally, but not least, Mr. Muhammad Ajum Islam, our third speaker. He is the manager of monitoring and evaluation of the Coral Triangle Initiative, CTI, CFF, international organization. So we will have interesting talk from different perspectives here. One from Malaysia, and two from located in Indonesia, I believe, but from different organization. So we have about 15 minutes for each speaker. So first, let me invite Engineer Dr. Lee Hin Lee to present her talk. Over to you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Prof, for your introduction. So I would like to start my presentations. Is it possible to see, Prof?
Well, I can see you, but what about your slide? Do you have slide?
Yeah, I shared the slide in the web already.
Any technical people here? You need to share. You need to share your screen, I think. This is Zoom, right? This is Zoom, right? Yeah. So you need to share your screen. Yeah. Okay. And can you just go to that PowerPoint presentation mode?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Excellent. So yes, please.
So very good morning to everybody, especially from Malaysia, because here now we are still morning. So I would like to share the topic on how is it we are I'm sorry because I'm not so feeling well. How do you design to guide the adaptations? Actually, I'm a researcher from the NAHRIM, National Water Research Institute of Malaysia. So the topics the contents that we are going to share is on 4 topics. Is about how about the introductions and the climate change in Malaysia, and the role in the sea level rise, in the R&D especially, then understand the coastal morphology due to sea level rise and the conclusions. So on introductions on the climate change in Malaysia, this is Malaysia, maybe for the overseas for foreigners, that actually Malaysia, we consist of 2 Peninsular Malaysias, Sarawak and Sabah. So actually we've been surrounded by few sea here. All right. So based on that, overview of projected climate change in Malaysia, what we can see is that actually in terms of the annual sea surface temperature, what being projected in the year of 2100, based on the historical data, it seems like we're going to have an increase of the surface temperature in the future, both either in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah or Sarawak. Same thing to the rainfall. We're also going to have a higher rainfall at the Sabah and Sarawak area. And today we are going to focus on sea level rise. In sea level rise, that we carry out also, it shows that the trend of increase in sea level rise is at the end of this 21st century is about 0.7 meters, but it varies from places to places. But for Peninsular Malaysia, it's about 0.171. For Sarawak is 0.72, and for Sabah is 0.78. It means that in Malaysia, we also facing the climate sea level rise conditions as being reported by the IPCC report. So actually, we analyze our sea level rise. We have this report from Nahrim. Actually, we produced it in the year of 2017. That it seems that our sea level rise is increasing. Based on the tidal stations, it shows the trend is increased. So observed tide gauge shows that the trend of rising sea. So this report shows that this is based on the AR5 scenario that we can see is that they have described different years with the different magnitude of rising sea. So if we make a comparison for the time horizon of 2100, what we can see here, there is a tidal stations along Malaysia shorelines that they have different type of magnitude of sea level rise based on the tidal elevations and the azimuthal combinations to produce the sea level rise. But if we overlay with the contour that less than -1 meters, that we can understand that few places it will be facing coastal inundation because of the sea level rise at the end of these centuries. So the magnitude of coastal erosion, magnitude of coastal inundations along the measures with the scenario of RCP 8.5 in the year of 2100, that we can see that this blue color represent that this will be predicted will be inundated based on the static model. Static model, it means that we are using the elevations and using the GIS to based on the elevations that we have to see whether the water will fall under in the basin or not. So under in the basin, so under that conditions, it shows that this area is a paddy area. They were facing the coastal inundations at the end of the century. So adaptation is needed to reduce the saltwater intrusion to the plants because of the more saltwater will sea will overspill to the inland area. Same thing to the Sabah and Sarawak, this area. And when we're talking about ecosystem, like today, our topic is more related to ecosystem. What we can see that in Sabah area, this area, most of our area will be is mangrove area that in the future also they are facing the inundations of the coastal conditions. But when we talk about ecosystem that from the Plan Malaysia's, actually it be reported that in Peninsular Malaysia we have series of the coral, something this represent the coral. This is coral or any type of the marine ecosystem along the east coast of Peninsular Malaysia shorelines. So they have you, but this present the mangrove. So today we are going to focus more on the mangrove and a bit about the coral, right? It shows that it means that if we are facing the sea level rise, how is it we are going to protect and mitigate, adapt and mitigate our ecosystem along the shoreline that we have. This is the distributions of the mangrove in the Malaysias, the different percentage of the distributions. And if we overlay the mangrove area and the forest area and the inundation map in one map here, what we can see here, actually, this area were inundated. Blue color, it shows that this color were inundated, but they are more in others land use. Like this one is more on paddy, this is more on the commercial areas, and this is more on paddy. But the one that shows the dark green will be mangrove area. This area will be mangrove area. And most of the mangrove area will be in the Sarawak area, this area, and this area, mangrove area. So today we are focused on how is it we are going to adapt using the hydrodynamic or using the science technology to see that how is it we can minimize or we can reduce the impact of the sea level rise towards the ecosystem that we have. So this is the examples that we have the mangrove. This is in the Langkawi, and this is some of the coral that we have in the Sabah. It's a very nice ecosystem that we in our Malaysia water body. So Nahrim Row in sea level rise. Actually, Nahrim, we have our own team. We have our nearshore data collection team that we have our own equipment to do some deployment to extract the data at the sea, and we have our echo sounder to do the bathymetry survey. And this data is very important that this is some of the activities also we undertake to carry out these data collections. After we have this data collection, actually we will carry out the simulations. For example, the one that I'm showing here is at the study at the, actually we are studying at this coral triangle area. We want to understand the coral, what is the impact of sea level rise towards the coral green coral, the condition of the coral there. Actually, this is just our beginnings, it's early stage of the study on the coral. So so after we actually, when we talk about numerical model, actually we need to do some model calibrations. For example, here we have our data collections after the team went down to the site and do data collection at these stations. So we need to calibrate our model. This is the water level, this is the current speed, and this is current directions. The red color, it shows that this is from the model, whereas the black color, it shows that this is from the measured data. So if we look at these conditions, actually our model is well calibrated, that can be represents the conditions at the site. Same thing also we check for fuels area like the one that at this Celebes Sea, at the other area at the South China Sea. So it shows that the trend is there. So in general, when we talk about Nahrim, we have carried out some R&D, then we have our data collection, we have our modeling, and we calibrate the data. And after that, our hydrodynamic will be distributed to the state for their own use in the how is it they can adapt, making some adaptation or mitigations in the future. So this is some of the example maps that we produced by Nahrim. So understand the hydromorphology due to sea level rise. So just now, based on the simulations, it shows that when we compare the sea surface elevations, this is the current conditions. The coral, most of the coral will be sitting in this area and this area. The conditions at current, what we can see that the surface maximum value of the surface elevations is about, in this area, about 0.9 meters. But because of when we induce the sea level rise from the boundary conditions with the magnitude of the 0.7 meters, that what we found actually, this area, the level of the sea will be increased. If we look at this green color, it's about 1.8. It's about 1 meters higher than the existing conditions. So we should understand that if in the futures that this is current conditions. If in the future we have a sea level rise, so what happened to the corals that we have there? It means that reduce in the amount of solar radiations like in the coral reef. Then the coral also will drowning in the deepest salt water, and they might be migrate. But because this is just our initial stage of the study, so we are going to do more further study on this subject. So we back to Peninsula Malaysia. Also, we did some analysis on the how the tidal induce the current due to sea level rise. Same thing we apply at our boundary with the magnitude of sea level rise. What we found that actually along the Peninsula Malaysia's shorelines, the magnitude of sea level rise along the Peninsula Malaysia is different places by places. Because of that, what we found actually, they also induce some different magnitude of the current speed. This is the total current speed due by 0.7 meter. It means that how much is it because of 0.7 meter sea level rise causing the changes on the current speed? What we found here is in the Strait Malacca, especially at the southern part, the current speed will be increased because of the increase in the 0.7 meter of sea level rise. The magnitude of increase is about 0.67. It's not so high, but this is because of this is just based on the 0.7 meter sea level rise. As reported by IPCC, in the future, maybe our sea level will be rising 1 meter, 2 meters. Then this magnitude of sea level rise, it might be higher. But another things that we should know is that this is just because of tidal induced current. We are not include when we talk about coastal area. We have to consider the wind, wave, storm, all these things. If we plus all this like wind, wave, then the magnitude of current changes here, it will be more higher. So based on that one, what we can understand when we talk about adaptations is here when we go for, if we have some mangrove here, it maybe the current speed will be increased here. And if we have some pot here, the current speed will be reduced. Means that adaptation, how is it the sedimentation problems at the pot, it will be increased because of the 0.7 meter of rising sea at the coastal area. And at the
Dr. Lee, sorry interrupting you. You have about 2 minutes or so.
Okay. So, okay, I will try to make it fast. Okay. So when we talk about mangrove itself, same thing like coral. What is it? When we talk about mangrove, it means that mangrove can survive in the mean level to mean high water spring. So this is the conditions. With the sea level rising, it means that the level will be rising. This one will cause all the mangrove in this area will disappear. So through our research also, we found actually mangrove can survive in the current speed less than 0.7 meters if they have that kind of current speed. So this is a studies that we carry out at one of the site in Malaysia. We found out actually to have a good mangrove, to let the mangrove survive, actually they have to have comply certain condition, meaning that their wave height must be less than 1 meter. So at this condition, the site 1 and site 2, site 1 was not complied with that conditions because of from the hydrodynamic issues that it did not comply with because of the wave is highest. Same thing to the current. Also, the site 1 is not comply because their current is higher. We have a higher current here compared to the site 2 that they have lesser current. So based on that, when they have some plantations at the site 1 and site 2, that we found that actually site 2, their reforestation is successfully, but not at the site 1 that because they are not comply with that conditions. So the key findings that to protect the ecosystem, some sort like mangrove, actually we need to have these conditions. If we cannot comply with these conditions, what we should do? Actually, we should protect it, or we should reduce the magnitude of current speed wave height by using the geotube. This is the example when we put in the geotube, the mangroves is increased, the surviving rate of the mangroves is there. Or we can put in some structures there as to reduce the mangrove, as the adaptations, or this kind of structures to reduce the wave, or another structures that they have some opening at the channels to let the salt water flow in. So the conclusions is sea level rise is expected to increase with the further thermal expansions, but certain mangrove can grow well in certain hydrodynamic. So appropriate adaptations like hard or nature-based solutions supposed to be implied before we can can sustain the mangrove, and R&D is needed to advise those who want to have some adaptations to minimize the losses of the plants that they are going to have. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, Senior Dr. Lee. Very important, sharing here, especially your work on hydrodynamic modeling, which can give important information to how to adapt in the coastal region. Hang on there. I think we need to get different perspective from the other two speakers before I open up for the question. I think that's better, Cheryl. Yeah? So let me quickly invite the second speaker, Dr. Rupesh Bomia. You have about 15 minutes or so. Over to you.
Can you hear me?
Please proceed.
And can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me today for this important seminar. I am equally excited to share some of the information and knowledge, but also to learn more from all the speakers and the breadth of knowledge that everyone will be sharing. So today I'll be talking about ecosystem services and resilience in coastal landscape and how adaptation can be integrated to our mitigation. We have been talking about adaptation and mitigation as two-pronged approach for addressing climate change. And today I'll try to show how there could be a third pillar to that and how we can combine that. And before I get started, I just wanted to focus for a brief few seconds on this image on the screen right now. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is a village of Timbusloko in Java Island of Indonesia. And you can see this is an inundation that these community, and you can see from the size of houses, red tiled houses, these used to be a wealthy community at some point. It was surrounded by mangroves, which was cut down and converted into shrimp ponds. And now this is their story. Every day, twice, these areas are inundated with these tidal waters and the house gets flooded. The roads and everything is below water. You see the steel bridges they have to construct so that they can access the houses. So such is the story. We talk about adaptation, and when you visit these kind of location, then it hits you in the face why this is important, what is the reality, and how so many communities across the world are in grave danger, if you will, with the changing climate change, sea level rise, and the harsh realities they are facing. So in my presentation, I'll have a brief introduction about coastal areas, climate change, blue carbon, then ecosystem services these coastal areas provide, briefly touch upon coastal vulnerability, and then I'll talk about sustainable coasts with a case study from Indonesia. Here we try to do some adaptation, integrated mitigation, and then end with some good practices, knowledge gaps, and capacity building. So I'm very happy with the first speaker who kind of laid the ground out, because in most of my presentation, I'll be referring to coastal landscapes and mangroves more than coral reefs or open ocean. So if we talk about Asia, or particularly Asia and Pacific, coastal areas, communities, and island nations are highly exposed to the climate, and there have been an increased frequency of many disasters which result into shocks and stresses. And when I say this shocks and stresses, this applies to not only human communities, but also natural ecosystems that exist there. And these impacts due to global climate change are growing in severity and frequency of extreme weather events, which results in coastal degradation, loss of ecosystem services, and then it poses greater risk to wildlife and human society. So what do we need to do in terms of addressing this? We know that a continual flow of ecosystem services can be maintained if the structural and functional integrity of these areas, these seascapes, is maintained. And then only the flow of services which fall under the ambit of regulating, provisioning, supporting, and cultural can be ensured. Healthy coastal ecosystem provide first line of defense against extreme events. Time and again, it's been proven with scientific research, with practical evidence, that having a healthy, thriving ecosystem, particularly mangroves in these areas, work as an bioshield to protect our coastal cities, communities, and infrastructure against any typhoon, hurricane, storm surges, or tsunami. I'll be talking a little bit about these coastal ecosystems, which comprise of salt marsh, seagrasses, and mangroves, and which are also referred to as blue carbon ecosystems. More specifically, I'll focus on mangroves during this presentation. So this is a map showing the global extent of blue carbon ecosystems. 151 countries contain at least one blue carbon ecosystems, and 75 countries contain all three. So when we talk about the sustainability of coastal landscape, when we talk about ability to adapt or mitigate climate change, these blue carbon ecosystems are very important. And the area, the geographical spread of these ecosystems across the world also indicates the opportunity that countries have when they are designing their policies, when they are planning how to act, when we are trying to make some of the interventions for adaptation or mitigation. So adaptation, what is adaptation? Adaptation is basically a series of actions that increases the resilience of ecosystems and communities against the escalating impacts of climate change. So there have been some studies where it's shown that investing about $1.8 trillion globally for adaptation over the next decade will produce net benefits of more than 7 trillion. So we often talk about in the arena of finance, the return on interest, on investment, ROI. And here it presents a very good example how this is going to benefit people, communities, and wildlife together. It also, investing this much amount will enhance climate change resilience. So our ability to withstand the impacts of climate change, withstand sea level rise, increasing resiliency of systems to fight against those changes will also improve. And if we talk specifically in case of Indonesia, restoring and conserving mangroves will result in protecting about 18 million people from coastal flooding, and it will boost fisheries productivity. So that's a co-benefit of it in terms of ability to adapt. When we talk about mitigation, and the photo on your screen here is a paper that came out on Nature Climate Change. It's essentially focused on the potential of blue carbon ecosystem, mangroves per se, in Indonesia to global climate change mitigation. So as you know, Indonesia has also about 40% mangroves ecosystems are in Indonesia. That puts Indonesia in the forefront of countries which can protect these ecosystems and can have a huge positive outcome in terms of sequestering this carbon. Mangrove ecosystems are well known when understood, established to be able to sequester and store huge amount of carbon, much more than its terrestrial cousins, other terrestrial forests. So being in the forefront, they not only provide protection of coastal landscape and other infrastructure, but also allows huge store of carbon for a long time. The graph on the right indicates the proportional size of emission reduction and that Indonesia, Malaysia, and you see so many countries from Asia Pacific here, which indicates the importance of this particular ecosystem when we talk about climate change mitigation. And the third aspect about blue carbon is its ability to address or allow countries to achieve their sustainable development goals, as well as meet the Aichi targets of biodiversity conservation. So I'm not going to go in each of these details due to time, but you see these blue carbon ecosystems have a much wider scope, much wider ability to address multiple goals at national and international, as well as regional level. When we talk about coastal vulnerability, researchers and practitioners have theorized at least 3 dimensions of this vulnerability. This involves exposure to stresses, it involves associated sensitivity, and then adaptive capacity. So you can think about this as a way to understand vulnerability. A highly vulnerable system, whether it's a community or ecosystem, will have high exposure to stress. It will be more sensitive to those stress and will have less adaptive capacity. So this allows us to look at different parameters, different components, and how we can measure this coastal vulnerability. This typology also allows us to differentiate between 2 areas when we are looking at which area is more vulnerable and which area is less vulnerable. When we talk about mangroves, these factors include mangrove forest health, adjacent ecosystem resilience, extent and effects of human impacts, and existing environment conditions. So these are a few factors that come into go into calculating vulnerability of mangroves in a particular area. And we talk about general coastal vulnerability index, then it includes various factors such as geomorphology, shoreline change, coastal slope, tidal range, mean sea level rise, wave height, and community awareness that's living in this. So this is to just give you an idea of what we face in light of climate change and how this can be assessed to differentiate our between 2 areas and then determine our actions or interventions. So degradation of coastal ecosystems and increased recurrence of natural hazards are increasing the risk of coastal communities. This is kind of well understood. That's why we are here talking about some of the topics we have in front of us today. And climate change impacts act as threat multipliers when combined with other anthropogenic stresses. So we know we have changing land use and land cover in coastal area, maybe deforestation, cutting down mangroves, or dying of corals. But due to climate change, these impacts are, expanded or multiplied when they are combined with other existing stresses. So this is a graph that presents the impact of various disasters in Asia Pacific region and rest of the world. On the left side, the data is from 1970 to 2020, so about 50 years of data. On the left side, it shows fatalities. On the right side, it shows number of people affected. So you can already see Asia Pacific region, there's millions of people who died and billions of people affected. But what is curious is when you look in the affected side, you see the 2 disasters that large proportion of people got affected are with floods and storms. And although this data is not divided into each particular category of these flooding or storms, there could be some inland flooding too. But you can see that the coastal areas are highly vulnerable. And that's why when we talk about any adaptation activities, there needs to be taken into consideration.
Dr. Bomia, sorry, you have about 3 minutes or so.
Okay, I'll quickly go through the slides. On this slides, I will say the important thing to note is the third bullet point, where the cost of adaptation in $1 billion has been estimated to almost about $70–80 billion annually for Southeast Asia. I wanted to show a case study from Indonesia, one particular area from Java Island. There, mangroves as a social ecological system. So mangroves provide climate change mitigation. Mangroves also provide adaptation. But the third pillar, third important aspect that I wanted to cover is health and nutrition. We cannot have a good adaptation if health and nutrition aspect or livelihood is not taken into account. So these are 3 sites where we conducted this exercise. We established some of the monitoring activities along with community members. We did biophysical monitoring to establish what are the carbon stocks in the soils, how mangroves are doing, what are the changes they are experiencing due to sea level rise and subsidence. And then by assessment of these total ecosystem stocks, tree and vegetation growth, and the soil changes, we were able to capture the mitigation aspect or the carbon sequestration in these areas. Then with the socioeconomic monitoring, we looked at the livelihoods of these communities, the food security and nutrition aspect to look at how communities are responding to these changes. And then we mapped the fishing catch of these people. And between the 3 sites, we compared them in areas where there was a healthy mangrove nearby, like in this case, you can see in the green, and the other sites where the mangroves have been removed. I show the picture in the beginning. And we looked at the occupation, catch, type of fish, and how they contribute to the livelihoods of these communities. We also looked into the women involvement in these areas, what role they play in decision making, and then how nutrition and children's diet are affected, whether the food that is being given to children is coming from mangroves and how mangroves are contributing. So by taking into consideration all of these things, what I'm trying to get at, I just one more slide after this, is that we need to understand the complexity between biophysical and socioeconomic aspects of this coastal landscape if we were to design solutions or policies. And there need to have opportunities of partnership and management of coastal areas with involvement of local communities, and then identify locally appropriate monitoring schemes for indicators that tell us about coastal health, and then formulate policies that capture uncertainties, because a lot of these things have never happened before and we are in uncharted territory. Essentially, we need to understand the interrelationship, healthy mangroves that can survive climate change, coastal human population that can survive climate change. It will only be possible through ecosystem goods and services. And then the coastal population have to have sustainable and adaptive management approaches to make sure these areas are kept like that. Just 3 important things. Governance and participation is important. We need to have better data and methods, and need to have support and capacity building technology and innovation to be able to achieve that. So with that, I end my presentation. There are a few key messages, which is repetition of what I have said before, but I end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bomi, a very interesting talk. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, but I'm sure we will have a little bit of time for Q&A later on. Please hang on there. I'm going to invite the third and the last speaker for this session, Master Muhammad Ajum Islam. Are you there? Yes, please. Can you proceed with your talk? You have about 15 minutes as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm present. I'm Mr. MD Anjum Islam, working with Regional Secretary at CTI-CFF. So I'm presenting this presentation on behalf of the chair of the working group, CCA, Climate Change Adaptation Working Group. So based on his advice, let me present this presentation. So let me introduce the organization CTICFF. It's a multilateral partnership of 6 countries, which is formed back in 2009, involving 6 countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Solomon Island, and Timor-Leste. So let me share the map of this CT6 country, called it CT6 country, involving 6 countries. So this is the map for the Coral Triangle countries, and you can see the line for the implementation area and also the scientific boundary of this initiative. And in the next slide, I'm presenting the structure of our organization. So from the beginning, I start with the Council of Ministers, and there is a committee of senior officials, and then the National Coordinating Committee from 6 countries, and then the Regional Secretariat coordinate with this 6 countries, NC6, and Regional Secretariat also coordinate with the separate working group. We have 5 technical working groups and 3 governance working groups, 3 cross-cutting initiatives, and also along with us, there is several partners, government, and university also. So let me share the screen for the CTICFF member state and partners. So as you can see, from the 6 countries, we have several ministers from the 6 countries. Like say, for example, from Indonesia, the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. So like that way, 6 ministries from 6 countries. And along with us, we have also several partners. Here you can see in the screen, like USAID, WCS, WWF, CTC, several partners, local and international NGOs there. And we have also some collaborators and also local and international universities. And let me share the screen for the Regional Secretariat. This is the Regional Secretariat based in Manado, Indonesia. So the Regional Secretariat really coordinate with CT6 country for the implementation of RPO 2.0, RPO Regional Plan of Action, and coordinate the 6 countries for several matters and organizing meetings. Thank you. And in the next slide, let me share the importance of the Coral Triangle initiatives. So basically, we are here for sustaining the marine and coastal resources, and also improving the food security, engaging the coastal community for reducing the impact of climate risks. And also we have 3 priority seascape. We have marine protected area, which is CTM plus level. Some of them are in category 4, some of them are category 3. We are also improving the socioeconomic condition of this coastal community. And this Coral Triangle area is really important for ice coral biodiversity, and also it's had an economic benefit, and it's also supporting the livelihood. And blue carbon is also important for blue carbon, and 45% of the whole mangrove associated carbon is found in this area. In the next slide, let me share the 5 goals of the Regional Plan of Action 1.0. So there are 5 goals associated with the 5 technical working groups. The first one is related to seascape. Second one is more related to fisheries, EFM. And the third one is marine protected area. Fourth one is climate change adaptation. And fifth one is threatened species. So let me share some of the achievement that actually achieved through this implementation of Regional Plan of Action. The first one is the Regional Early Action Plan and Local Early Action Plan. Then also finalize the CCA executive course. So recently we have already the first webinar for CCA executive course, first one, and we also draft the web page for virtual center of excellence, and we also finalized the CCA joint communique. And apart from that, through this working group, climate change adaptation working group, we actually developed several tools for assessment and monitoring also. And next slide, let me share the timeline. We actually started from 2009, and after that, there are several achievements we actually achieved during our last couple of years. Like back in 2010, we found the Regional Business Forum, then also the Women Leaders Forum in 2014. So like this, and the Regional Secretary was also formed in back in 2015. And if you look at that, 2020, what next? So for the next 10 years, we are actually now preparing or developing the RPO 2.0, Regional Plan of Action 2.0. So it will be for next 10 years, 2021 until 2030. So this Regional Plan of Action have two goals, which is both of two goals have special focus on the climate issue. So if you look at the first goal, also by 2025, is also focusing for the hope with the impact of climate change. And the next one, 2030, also it focused at regional or able to adopt the impact of climate change. And under these two goals, we have three objectives. So let me share the structure of the RPO 2.0. So the first, we have two goals, and under these two goals, we have three objectives. And under those objectives, we have several targets, total 7 targets we have. And then there are regional activities and outcome and outputs. So if we talk about the climate change adaptation intervention, so in target B3, if you look at that, it is capture the climate change adaptation activities here. So let me share some of the targets from the regional plan action. From the first objective, objective A, under the first objective A, there are 3 targets. The first one is coral reef, mangrove, and seascape. And the second one is threatened species. Third one is healthy and productive fisheries. So, and there are several regional activity here. Under the objective B, we have 3 targets as well for food security and coastal livelihood. Second one is gender equality and social inclusion, and third one is coastal resilient communities. And this third one is more related with climate change adaptation working groups, and there are several intervention or activity that we are targeting for next 10 years. So the important are captured here: the regional activity, improve capacity in generating and reporting information on climate change risks, and the second one is partnership assessment and implementation of climate change adaptation for coastal environment, small island ecosystem. And under the third targets, which is related to governance, there are also some of the regional activities. So all of those targets actually are contributing for reducing the impact of climate change adaptation, and also for sustaining and also for sustaining the coastal and marine ecosystem and resources. Thank you for your time.
That was your last slide, Mr. Islam?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, okay. Great, thank you. So we have more time for Q&A. How much time we have actually in the program here, 10:45. So 20 minutes? We can push it to 11 o'clock? That's good. So we heard, we had three speakers from with different perspective. Dr. Lee, Engineer Dr. Lee basically highlighted that understanding physical environment is quite important if you were to adapt to the impact of climate change in the coastal areas. Planting mangrove has to be in the right speed of currents and so on. So some intervention perhaps needed to, do if you have, higher current speed. Dr. Bomia highlighted the case in Indonesia, where blue carbon, specifically mangrove, has different roles, not just mitigating climate change, but for the healthy of the ecosystem there, so that fish population can thrive, So, and of course, Islam highlighted the CTI, the roles and function in maintaining the healthy coral ecosystem in this region. So I'm sure there are many questions here. I saw one online here, but I think I'm going to give a bit of priority here for the audience in front, in the hall here. So yes, sir. Can someone give a microphone?
Thank you, Doctor. It was a very good presentation. I'm really touched with the situation that we are in now today. First of all, I was very curious when I came to this hall. I said, what is this climate change has to do with the MMEA or even Malaysia? Normally we talk about climate change, the effect is only to some other foreign countries, but not Malaysia. So, but thank you for giving me a lot of information and educating me on it is also happening in Malaysia, especially with the way forward that the action that the Malaysian has taken in order to make sure that it doesn't affect us so much. Like, you talk about mangrove and all these things. So what is MMEA's role in this mangrove plantation and in the mangrove industry? I would say that we actually, MMEA, has started to enforce the export and import of mangrove was, the stop to export and import of mangrove has been implemented back in, I think, in 2000, early 2000. I think it's about 2012 or 13, around that. So we, MMEA, has actually enforced the law and also have apprehended or detained certain vessels, especially from the neighboring country, from bringing in the mangrove into our country. So I think that has actually helped in some way another to reduce the impact of this climate change to Malaysia. I hope that we will continue to do that in enforcing that import and export of mangroves into the country and outside of out of our country. Okay, my question is that we also must not forget that there is a serious activity of sea mining or sea sand mining, which I think not touched by any of the speakers about that. So I want to know whether it is actually also affecting the environmental changes or as what we are talking about today. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very good question. By the way, MMA is a Malaysian Maritime Agency. Am I right? Yes. So Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency. Yeah, Malaysian Coastal Agency. So the question was, sand minings happening perhaps in Malaysia and perhaps other countries as well in the region. So what is the impact on the ecosystem? I'm sure on the physical aspect, perhaps will change the current speed in others. So I don't know any of the speaker. Dr. Lee, maybe Dr. Bomia or Mr. Islam can answer this as well. Dr. Lee, maybe first with you.
Yeah, of course. When we talk about sand mining, it means that they're going to deepen the bathymetry. When we deepen the bathymetry, actually the hydrodynamic changes will be there. Normally it will give, there will be a different, how to say, of course, they will change the conditions of hydrodynamic, because when we talk about hydrodynamic, they are talking about bathymetry is the most important. With the deepened bathymetry, sometimes they will slow down the current at the center of the mining area, but they will increase the current at the surrounding of that mining area because of the sudden drop of the bathymetry. So of course, because of these conditions, they will let the they will try to bring the sand from the surrounding area and to be replaced in the one that they are slow, the current will getting slow at the one that the one that they have extract the sand. So that is happening.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Maybe Dr. Bomia maybe can answer from other perspective, from the biological aspect maybe.
Yeah, I think the important aspect Dr. Lee has covered, but I would like to say that when we extract sand or any other resource in sort of unplanned and unsustainable manner, what will happen is it will change the dynamics, the structure and functional integrity of that ecosystem. So what I mean by saying is that these areas, at least in the coastal areas, these are dynamic areas. They constantly are evolving and changing in account of what kind of pressures they are facing. So if we remove sand from there, that will destabilize the coastal area. This may have effect on recruitment of mangroves or other species. It may have impact on the nursery function that these areas provide for the fish and other biological creatures. So it may not be easy to pinpoint one thing, but the cascading impacts might be felt later on. So it's important that whenever these activities are taken, there is a proper impact assessment done and some kind of proper planning to be done. And then it has to be done in a sustainable manner. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. These, of course, can be considered as anthropogenic activities, which can add into the impact of compound impact of climate change, of course. I have one question in the chat here. One come from Bimati Maran. Sea level rise. Sabah shows 0.74 meters sea level increase by end of the century, I guess. What are the effective measures taken to control the impact? So this perhaps goes to Dr. Lee again. Can you read it, Dr. Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, please answer this.
Actually, to say that again, I would like to see the question again. What are the effect measures taken to control the impact? All right. Okay. We know that Sabah area we have quite a numbers of the mangrove that it will be shows that it will be effect because of sea level rise. So the most important thing is how is it we can reduce the anthropogenic effect that to reduce the temperatures released to the atmosphere. Then only we can reduce the climate change in the future. I think mitigations from us is very important. Of course, when we talk about adaptations, it will be, if they are too serious, it means that maybe the Sabah state have to put in some protections like geotubes or any structures, the low height structures or any revetments that to reduce the impact. So for the adaptations, it means that if they are still cannot be taken with the high current speed and the current speed and the high water level, it means that the structures we can use in the hard structures or soft structures to protect the mangrove. in another side, when we talk about mitigations, then we should reduce our anthropogenic impacts to the atmosphere, that to reduce the impact of the global warming towards the mangrove.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Yes, please. One question from
the
Thank audience.
Thank you, Prof. So I'm Efi Helmi from INOS UMT. So I'm not open the question. Sorry, I'm not speak any question to everybody. Just open the question. Anybody can answer my question. But about the coastal processes that I'm one highlight about that, because the coastal processes that have an erosion and then make it the coastal disaster or coastal hazards. But the idea is the normal protection, or the idea for the protection is start from the coral, hard coral and the soft coral, and then the back have a Abyssinia, and then for the mangrove, and then Nipa or anything, and then for the last is Rhizopora. But the idea is when we replant the coral, or we replant the mangrove, we just focus on only the species. For example, the mangrove only Rhizopora. But the idea is we cannot replant the Rhizopora in front, the liner, because it's not suitable for the sandy, and then also not suitable for the tidal and the current and wave. So I open the question, how we can, because we have a, for example, in Tumpat have a zonation about the mangrove, but in UMT actually the mangrove is very scattered, and also many kind of the east coast of mangrove. But the idea is how we can adapt. We mitigate first, and then how we can adapt the different of zonation, and then we replant any kind of species, and then we just replant without any kind of studies. Just my questions.
Thank you, Mas Efi. I think I would point this to Dr. Bomia, perhaps answering on the mangrove part.
Sure.
And maybe the coral part, Islam can answer that part as well.
Sure. So very briefly, this is a very good question, and I'm glad this question get asked, because we see a flurry of mangrove restoration or planting activities happening all across. There is a lot of interest in that, but not all of these plantation is successful, and precisely so because this is focused on either planting one species or planting not in the right place or right zone. So there have been examples, although few, where mangrove plantation have been successful, where people, at least the proponents of that project, have taken more efforts to study the area, identify the site of plantation, zonation in terms of hydrology, what kind of tidal inundation that area is facing, and then selectively planting different species, not just mono species, either Rhizophora or Avicennia, but a mix of species. The reason why what happens generally is because either it's a lack of time or lack of planning or lack of availability of appropriate seedlings, that they try to just do what is available, either one species, and not pay enough attention. But if done right, this is not that difficult to achieve. The important thing is to drive home the point that the success of that restoration or planting effort will only depend if some effort is taken in the beginning. What is planted where, and how do we get all the seedlings, the mix trees or seedlings that we want to plant? Then it is successful.
Mr. Islam, do you have? Do you want to respond to the previous question?
Thank you very much. So it's more scientific question. So maybe it's a good discussion for our next CCO working group meeting. We can discuss more in the CCO working group meeting internally for this matter. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question from the audience in the hall here?
Prof, I have one suggestion. I don't know, is it?
Okay, Dr. Leah, please proceed. Yeah.
Okay, based on the question just now, I don't know whether outsider there, because I'm not a mango specialist, is it any possible that research can be carried out to find a new species of the mangrove that they can cater with the different climate change, like the higher higher water depth and higher current speed. I don't know outside there like a paddy because of salt water. Then they
That's a challenge. That's a challenge for people who deal with this. Yeah, paddy, paddy, they can discover new variety that can survive in the harsh environment, in lack, in the drought environment, and so on. So it could be similar to mangrove. Um, um, let's make that as a challenge for them. We have Prof. Datuk Nuraini here with a new question. Prof.
Hello, good morning, and thank you very much for all the three speakers. As we are aware that we are concerning about the resilience about the coastal areas, of which comparative work has been done for Malaysia as also a member of the Coral Triangle countries. My question is that what has been presented as an example, what they have done, looking into the adaptation measures for the climate change adaptation, is that on the reclaim project, which is quite interesting, that if we can do, we can model it and do it elsewhere. So when we mention about mangrove assessment or monitoring as part of the evaluation of the efforts by the Coral Triangle countries, the concern is that on the biophysical changes that we want to observe, the data management, but as well as the socio-economic component. It's not only the scientific group, it's a transdisciplinary. My question is that, because I've been involved with Coral Triangle initiative before in the pioneering stage, is there enough capacity development training in the areas of which is so important that we have to have investors in terms of development of infrastructures, including replanting and looking into the corporate sectors and governments to invest for the blue carbon initiative. So do we have enough environment accountants when we talk about dollars and cents and how we attract the corporate sectors to invest in this conservation and adaptation initiative for these countries? Do we have enough training, or is there any ample talents in the Coral Triangle region, or perhaps from development partners that we could initiate, in this case for Malaysia or Indonesia or the rest of other countries in the CT6 region? Thank you.
Very, very important question, the capacity development to ensure that the agenda on especially on how blue carbon can be used as a way of mitigating the climate change. So maybe who is the most relevant? Mr. Islam, I give this to you first.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice question and concern actually. So yeah, as I already presented, the regional plan of action 2.0 we are now developing. So in coming soon in senior official meeting in November, it will be approved. So based on in line with regional plan of action, there are several outputs related to the activity or intervention that the question is referred to. So we are actually targeting for regional exchanges, training, and also learning exchange, and also conducting some assessment, and also some intervention in line with CCA, climate change adaptation. So the RPO 2.0 have the specific targets, goals, objectives related to this intervention, but we are still looking.
We have some connection problem there. So what? Yeah.
Yes. Make it clear. Oh, because of my internet, I think.
Yeah, we had you were frozen actually. So, but anyway, I think we use up our allocated time here. So this has been a very interesting discussion. You know, climate change is really a challenge for humanity, for all of us. As you heard that, sea level is rising, various impact will be coming, affecting our livelihood, our coastal ecosystem. But I think the solution is there. Mitigation is part of it, of course, but adaptation in our own backyard, whatever we do can be a solution to this, as demonstrated by a presentation by Dr. Bomia in a case study in Jakarta, I think, where protecting mangrove can serve not just for mitigation, but for other function as well. So we do have hope, I think, if we do it right, despite this global phenomena associated with climate change. So this has been a very interesting discussion that we have here. I wish we have 2 hours, but we are given only 1 hour. So I let's give a round of applause again to all speakers. Yeah. So back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fredrelin. Thank you very much, IR Dr. Lee Hin Lee, Dr. Rupesh Bomia, and Mr. Anjum Islam for the great sharing. And also, thank you very much, Professor Fredrelin Tangang and Ms. Shara Rita Kaur for bringing us to a very productive session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 11:02 a.m. here in Malaysia. We will take a short break before continuing on our next session, so which will resume. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic for our second session is the initiatives on climate change adaptation and ocean resilience in the Indo-Pacific, leveraging technical expertise to close the knowledge gap between climate change adaptation and the resilience of oceans in achieving ocean sustainability. Our second moderator for this seminar is Ms. Sharita Kaur from the Maritime Institute of Malaysia. She is the Research Fellow and Head of the Center for Straits of Malacca. She specializes in marine environment and resources management, ocean governance, marine pollution control, and green maritime industry practices locally and abroad. She completed her Masters of Science in Marine Science, Policy and Law from the University of Southampton, United Kingdom, Bachelor of Science with honors in Marine Biology from the University Malaysia Terengganu, and a diploma in multilateral environmental agreements from the University of Eastern Finland. Therefore, we would like to invite Ms. Shara Rita Kaur, Research Fellow from the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, to moderate the second session. Ms. Shara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Liz, for the kind introduction. May I also invite the speaker for this session, Dr. Effie, to come on stage, please. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, guests, moderators, speakers. It is my honor to moderate session 2, which will be looking into the initiatives on climate change adaptation and ocean resilience in Indo-Pacific. So we have heard a rich, diverse, different presentations this morning, focusing on the various elements of climate change and some of the strategies, not just in Malaysia, but also in the region, examples, best practices, as well as challenges, issues, and gaps that we need to look further into. I will give you a little bit of a background as to what we will try to address in this session. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, the Indo-Pacific region is increasingly more vulnerable to climate change risks than other regions in the world, mainly because of the dependence on the natural resources and agriculture sectors, as well as the densely populated coastal areas which is crucial to look into when we talk about marine and maritime climate change impacts and so on. Therefore, adaptation, mitigation, resilience, these are the key words that we've been addressing since this morning. Some of the key areas or strategies that we have to look into sustaining not just the environment and the resources, but economic growth is all interrelated in that sense. Failures to adapt this could stall development, and particularly in the countries that depend on natural resources and so on, including Malaysia in this instance. Now, mainstreaming this adaptation, resilience, mitigation, all these buzzwords in environment and resources management, especially in the capacity of most vulnerable sectors that we are talking about, into development planning would entail the full engagement of relevant stakeholders, including policy-making agencies, research institutions, the private sector, as well as the civil society, towards catalyzing these strategies in a cost-effective and implementable, practical implementable ways. Now we have with us 3 speakers, key speakers that are experts on these relevant areas. I will quickly introduce you to the first speaker for this session. Really happy to see you again, Professor Kazuo Nadaoka. Too bad you are not here physically, but nevertheless, nice to see you online. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Professor Dr. Kazuo Nadaoka is a professor emeritus and specially appointed professor at Tokyo Institute of Technology. He is a scientific steering committee member of Sustainability Initiative in the Marginal Seas of South and East Asia, or SIMSI, and the chair of the SIMSI subcommittee in the Science Council of Japan, SCJ. He was also a former vice president of Japanese Coral Reef Society, or the JCRS, a council member of the International Coral Reef Society, ICRS, and chair of Coastal Engineering Committee in Japan Society of Civil Engineers. His main research fields are coastal ecosystem conservation studies, integrated coastal zone management, and coastal oceanography engineering. Very apt for the session today. Professor Kazuo, I pass the floor to you, please. You have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Is this visible?
Yes. Clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important seminar. Okay, here is my presentation title, Blue Carbon Strategy for Realizing Sustainable and Resilient Socio-Ecological Systems in Coral Triangle Coast. Okay. Let me begin with, this slide indicating the overall situation of the corals, mangroves, sequences in terms of the biodiversity, the number of species in each element of the coastal ecosystems, corals, mangroves, sequences. Yeah, overall, in the Coral Triangle, that is the global center in coastal ecosystem richness, located in the area connecting Pacific and Indian Ocean, right? So it's having the world highest richness and diversity of the coastal ecosystems, consisting of the 3 main elements. But all of them are indicating the highest rates of the loss. Yeah, that is the current status. And on this slide shows that the schematic illustration about the multiple environmental stresses on the coastal ecosystems. On the left side, we are facing at development into land, causing the terrestrial runoff. Yeah, and also recently we have been facing the devastating conversion of the mangroves into fish ponds, shrimp ponds, and others. And right sides, we are facing the sea level rise, temperature rise, causing coral bleaching, ocean acidifications, and the increasing trend of the intensity of typhoons, the super typhoons, I mean. And the coastal ecosystem itself, we have the local stresses like due to unsustainable tourism development, overfishing, illegal fishing, and sometimes we have the outbreak of cod, crown of thorn starfishes. Yeah, that is, I believe it to be caused also by anthropogenic impact as well, right? So recently we have emerging keywords that is a blue carbon. Yeah, that is the biological carbon captured by coastal marine organisms through photosynthesis process in mangrove, seagrass, salt marsh, and others. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I have some problem right now about yeah, a point. Okay. Anyway, blue carbon is a kind of a keywords for contributing both for the coastal ecosystem conservations in the local scale and climate change mitigation in the global scale as well, right? So, but if you look at the actual situation of mangrove seagrasses, these two are the main components of blue carbon ecosystems in the tropical and subtropical areas. Yeah, as I showed you before, these two are now declining, and that means, yeah, in the current status of these ecosystems, that means we are facing a kind of carbon release back to the atmosphere. That's why we have to introduce the effective framework for properly combating this serious issue, right? And from now on, I'd like to briefly introduce our ongoing project. Yeah, that is acronym as Blue Cares Project, right? So that is relating to blue carbon redhead, project for effectively conserving and restoring blue carbon ecosystems. Yeah. So we're aiming at establishing what we call blue carbon strategy as an effective scheme for enhancing local efforts to conserve coastal ecosystem and improve its resilience, and thereby for contributing to mitigation of global warming. This is actually trilateral joint project between Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia for 6 years. Yeah, it is still ongoing, right? Yeah, this slide shows our key questions and challenges on blue carbon, or blue carbon ecosystems. Yeah. All these are very simple questions, but very, very important. Yeah. First one is how to precisely assess blue carbon. The next one is blue carbon has been well preserved or degraded. And if degraded, what are causal relationships behind? And what will happen if no action will be taken? And how to properly conserve blue carbon? What is the best policy among the options? The last one is, how do we link blue carbon with coastal ecosystem conservation efforts? Yeah, for properly answering all these key questions and the challenges, we have put a lot of efforts then resultantly, we have developed the novel methodology of the monitoring and others, and the nationwide monitoring and the change detection with remote sensing and the ground-based networks called CNS, and identifying drivers, their impacts, and developing an integrated model system as a future prediction tool. And using that tool, we are planning to do scenario analysis with model system to be developed. And for last one, comprehensive ecosystem service assessment. Yeah. For all these challenges and our answers, we are trying to wrap up in the form as what we call blue carbon strategy. Yeah. So due to the time limitation, I'd like to show you some highlighting points. Yeah. about our challenges. The first one, yeah, is integrated multi-scale model system development. Yeah, actually the target area is coral triangle, is all surrounding areas. Yeah, that is a regional scale 3D models. Yeah. But in our model system, we have also developed a local scale blue carbon dynamics model. Yeah, about seagrass dynamics model, mangroves, and a coral reef dynamics models. By linking all these and was the regional scale models, yeah, then we will further integrate watershed models. Yeah, that is a kind of green carbon dynamics models. Yeah, by linking all these, yeah, the different scale models, then we can chase, yeah, about our carbon dynamics. Yeah, starting from the watershed, coastal, and deep ocean. Then we can find the fate of the carbon dynamics, including the final sinking areas, that is deep ocean, right? Then we can utilize this kind of tool for future predictions. Yeah. And as one of the example of this regional scale models, we have applied that to find what is the regional scale spatial distribution of the oceanic CO2 sink and source characteristics. In the left panel, it shows the global map of the data, available data of the CO2 flux. Yeah, as you can see, the majority of the regional scale ocean here, yeah, Indonesian Sea and its surrounding, yeah, that is indicated as a white. That means the we have the lack of the available data. Therefore, we have applied our new models to find what is the actual distribution of the CO2.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Prof, you have 3 more minutes, please.
Yeah. Okay. This is the yeah, shows the source characteristics. Yeah. Therefore, we have to introduce good practice for enhancing the CO2 sink characteristics by introducing the blue carbon ecosystem conservation and restoration. And this is the remote sensing application or the nationwide. Yeah, this is the results, examples indicating the decadal change of the mangrove forest covers in the Philippines. Then we found that the mangroves there are still decreasing due to climate change impacts. And we have introduced a kind of ground-based nationwide network, what we call core and network system, CNS, for periodical nationwide monitoring and for linking various local actions and national policy planning. Yeah. And yeah, for example, yeah. And one of the selected sites of the CNS, we are planning to introduce what we call GB link. Yeah. What basically our main target is, of course, blue carbon ecosystems in the coastal zone. But for properly understanding what's going on and properly develop the effective framework for restoring the blue carbon ecosystems, you have to look at green carbon ecosystem in the terrestrial part. Yeah. Therefore, we are planning to develop integrated green and blue carbon ecosystem conservation program. Yeah. This is another example in the Philippines. Yeah. Yeah. That is the Akron River watershed and adjacent coastal zone. Yeah. Yeah. You can find there's a very, very complicated linkages from various elements within the watershed and also coastal zones. Yeah. Therefore, again, I have to emphasize for properly understanding the processes and for seeking for effective methodologies for extensively improving the situation, you have to introduce this kind of GB link framework. Yeah, this is the snapshots of the first Akron River and Batam Bay Summit. That is that was held for establishing a collaborating mechanism with various stakeholders in the GB link framework. Okay, so for example, in this slide, I put some bullet points, including, for example, GB link and others. Yeah, I'd like to emphasize also in this slide the importance of the introducing citizen science approach as well. Yeah, and the last one, that is the importance of the capacity development. Yeah, we have held actually the this kind of the training workshops. Yeah, in person, but in the COVID pandemic time, we held the subsequent virtual workshops as well. Yeah. Yeah, we are now trying to expand our scope to regional scale. Yeah, by
Prof.
introducing CNS in Malaysia. Yeah.
Sorry, Prof, to interrupt. One more minute, please.
Yes, of course. And we are now trying to expand our scope. Yeah, toward establishment of the integrated regional scale CNS. Yeah. Yeah, this is the last message. Integration, linkages, networking, all these are keys to realize effective initiatives, policies, actions for BC ecosystem conservation and restoration, and thereby for contributing to climate change mitigation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, indeed, Professor Kazuo Nadaoka. I wished we had a bit more time for your presentation because this is such an important area, but nevertheless, you managed to highlight quite a number of important points that we have to consider, including the need to integrate blue and green carbon. And definitely blue carbon is an area that is much of importance, and session 1 also spoke a little bit on this issue. Do stay on with us. We'll keep the questions to the end of the session, Prof. We will now quickly move to the second presenter. We have with us Professor Dr. Suchana Chavanish. She is a professor at the Chulalongkorn University and has got a broad base of ecological research interests that involve the study of near-shore species from tropical to polar regions. In addition, her research focuses on conservation and restoration of marine ecosystems and impact of climate change and marine debris on marine ecosystems. She's got a wide range of experience in regional programs, including the UNESCO IOC subcommittee on coral reefs, as well as Reef Check and so on. With that brief introduction, Professor, I pass the floor to you. You have 15 minutes for your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me start, share the slides, okay. Okay, you can see my slide, right?
Please share. Yes, now it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to join your seminar, and I'm honored and privileged to be here with you all today. So today I would like to share with you the example, because throughout this morning you heard a lot about adaptation, resilience, right? But I would like to take about 15 minutes to share with you the example of how restoration can help coral to adapt and resilient to the climate change. But before I'm gonna go for that, I have to thank all of my co-authors for working with me in the past 20 years. So without them, this project would not be possible. So as we all know, that the coral reef supply a number of valuable and vital ecosystem service and good, such as food provision, shoreline protections, erosions, regulation, and so on. And we all know that, well, because of the climate change ongoing now, so now people try to see whether, how we could help the ecosystem through the conservations and restorations, because by the end of the centuries, the scientists predict that at least 5 degrees from the will rise from the average normals, And we also know that the coral reef probably gonna have an effect on that, because if the water temperature rises only 1 or 2 centigrades, they can cause the bleachings on the coral. And not just only that, in the past 2 years, we not just only encountered with the changing environment in a changing world, but also we have to encounter with the pandemics like the COVID-19 pandemics. So these also have to take into account to that in terms of the environment's next step, what we're gonna do. So as I just mentioned to you earlier, coral reef provide a numbers of valuable and vital ecosystem service, but unfortunately, because of the risings of the CO2 that lead to eventually the climate change and then elevate the sea temperatures, and not just only that, the ocean acidification also can happen, even though right now we not really see the situation of ocean acidification yet, but well, scientists have predicted in the next maybe 10, 20 years, it can happen eventually because of the CO2's amounts into the oceans. And if you realize it, in the past 5 years, 6 years, not just only in Thailand, but in Southeast Asia regions, because of the global warming, we could see quite frequently of the coral bleaching phenomena happens. And this picture shows you that, well, a coral is like an animal that they try to survive. You can see that most part of the coral already died, but there's still some part still alive. So it means that they themselves fight very hard to survive in these changing environments. So when we look at this picture, some of us probably think that, well, if they can be able to survive, why we have to help them? But I would like to say that, well, even though they try to adapt themselves, but it will take quite a long time for them. But if we can be able to have some kind of interventions, help them to be able to recover faster, it will help them to be able to bring back as normal as soon as possible. Similar like when we are sick, right? If we take a rest, we can recover. But if we take more medicines, then we will recover faster. And some of you probably see this picture before. Scientists also have predicted that in the next 30 years, if we still don't do anything, more than 90% of the coral reef around the world will be at risk. At risk is mean that will be disappear, okay? Like in the similar to the right-hand side of the picture. And we hope that it will not get into that soon. So now, when we're talking about losings of the coral reef cover, so actually there are several ways that we can be able to bring the populations of the coral back. So for Thailand, for example, one way that usually they do is that to increase and implement of the MPA. So MPA have been a choice since because people think that it's not too much complicated from the government point of view and provide a less budget. But then restorations, active restoration now is become quite more popular in Thailand and also in Southeast Asia regions to increase the populations of the coral in degraded area. And today, I would like to share with you one of the recently introduced a technique that have been introduced not just only to Thailand, but also in Indonesia, Philippines, also Malaysia too, is that we call sexual propagation techniques. So in Thailand, we have introduced this technique since 2010, and then now we can be able to use this technique to cultures of coral more than 10 coral species up to when we can be able to get the coral egg and sperm. So For this work, what we do is that we collect egg and sperm of coral in the field and then brought it back to the hatchery, big hatchery, and artificial fertilize them and then raise them for 2 years before we release them back into the oceans. So this is how it works. Is that you can see that coral egg and sperm here, and then we artificially fertilize them and then raise them until 2 years old before we release them back into the oceans. So now, well, each year we produce about 3,000 coral colonies, baby coral in the hatchery, but eventually throughout these 2 years, we end up having just only 1,000 left. This is still okay. So from 10 years now, we got about 10,000 coral colony that have been planted in one of the locations in the Upper Gulf of Thailand. And not just only, you know, we consider more propagations of the baby coral, but now we can be able to prove that we are close the circle. So for the restorations, the goal is not just only have a mass cultures of juvenile coral, right? But the ultimate goal is to have those baby coral become mature and be able to reproduce again. So this is the important things. And right now in Thailand, we found that if the corals about 5 years old, they can be able to reproduce again. So this is how we close the circle, start from egg and sperm, and now they become parents. And actually I become a grandparents now too, because all those baby coral. And not just only that we succeed, but recently, this is to show you that we not just only propagate the baby coral. This is the hatchery that we always call that, you know, is a one-star hotel. Why we call one-star hotel? And actually this is also important point for the coral adaptation in resilient. This is going to talk next. Okay, we call one-star hotel because actually the truth is that this hatchery cannot be able to have a temperatures control, the water temperature controls, you know, the water control because of the lower of the budget. And actually we plan to upgrade it into 2 or 3 star hotel. But what we found is that the coral that come out from our hatchery, now some of you probably heard it, super coral. Why we call a super coral on that? Well, because what we found is that the coral that we produce, they can be able to tolerate to the changes of the temperatures. Because as I just mentioned to you earlier, our hatchery is just 1-star hotel. So the water that come out, temperatures, water temperatures that come out, we cannot really control anything. So usually in the hatchery, the water temperature would be about 2 centigrade higher than the normal in the oceans. So that's why during the 2 years, they have to be able to tolerate to the fluctuations of the water temperatures. And that's why after 2 years old, when we release back into the oceans, when we have a bleaching occur, the baby coral actually, they can withstand very well. They maybe have a pale color, but they never see any bleaching or die at all. So now actually it's very important that we learn that not just only coral itself, but we believe that in other animals too, they can be able to adapt to the changes of environment if they got trained since they were young. So, and actually there are some papers that have been published related to about the adaptations of the animal, including the coral too. The other techniques that I also would like to share with you also is that cryopreservation. Cryopreservation is recently have been introduced into the regions, particular for the corals. What does it mean cryopreservation? Cryopreservation is a technique that freezing the tissues or cell to preserve for the use at the later dates. Well, definitely when the rising of the temperatures, it affects not just only the bleaching of the coral, but there's been evidence to prove that it also affects the reproductions of the corals. So if the water temperature get higher and higher, eventually the coral probably not going to be able to produce egg and sperm. But if we do some kind of cryopreservation, preserve egg and sperm of the coral, we will make sure that if they would not be able to produce egg and sperm, we will have egg and sperm for them to be able to continue for the reproductions. And cryopreservation.
Professor,
Yeah.
sorry, you have 3 more minutes, please.
Okay, I almost done. Yeah. So cryopreservation, actually we saw it quite a lot in human, right? A dog and cat. But now coral, we starting to see on a coral, and it's going to be very useful if we're talking about in the next 5 or 10 years that we have to cope with adaptation, resilience to the environmental change. So, well, as I just mentioned to you, our coral restoration technique is one of the example to show you that, well, actually we can train coral itself to be able to adapt and resilient to the climate change. And for the cultivation of the coral itself, we not just only don't want to be what we call, I always call that wedding ceremony for the coral, but we want to make sure that we also act as a family planner for the coral too, to make sure that our baby that we produce, they can be able to come out with a strong and can become a hug baby. And well, I would like to thank all the partner and our fundings. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Suchana Chavanish, for the very informative presentation. Earlier in session 1, we heard from Dr. Rupesh on mangroves ecosystems, and now we've heard from Dr. Suchana on the coral reefs and how efforts are available, the technical know-how is available on the ground, and some of the results that are coming out from that. So we'll keep, please do stay on, Professor, we'll keep the questions to the end, and we'll quickly move to the last but not least presenter. I'm happy you are here on the stage with me. We have Dr. Effie Helmi, who is an Associate Professor of Marine Geoscience Program at the Faculty of Science, Marine and Environment, University Malaysia Terengganu, UMT. He is also the Deputy Director of the Institute of Oceanography and Environment at UMT. His current research interest is focusing on the coastal morphodynamic within diverse coastal management strategies, as well as exploratory studies on natural protection at the beach in the monsoon environment, which happen to be involving new innovations and among the first in Malaysia. So I pass the floor to you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, thank you, and also for the audience in the floor and also in online. So yeah, can someone share my slide? Okay, so actually most of speaker focus on mitigations. Focus on adaptation. Before we adapt, we need to have identify the coastal hazard or coastal disaster first, and then later on we focus on how to mitigate. That's his idea before we adapt. Actually, about what kind of the impact on the disaster will be on coastal community and also coastal ecosystem. So I'm glad to Mima because he invited me on our seminar, and then I'm really present about the impact of 2020 Typhoon Rai on Terengganu Beach and also the coastal erosion mitigation using a e-fence. So I'm Effie Helmi bin Arifin from University Malaysia Terengganu. Okay. Is it just press the next? Okay. Okay, a little bit about the introduction because I think we'll just have around 10 minutes or 12 minutes. So about about the introduction. Actually, the cyclone or the typhoon is not in our cycle or is not in our lines, especially on Peninsular Malaysia. Mostly affected just on north of Sabah. But currently we having or reveal the Pabuk cyclone on 2019 in January, and also in Rai typhoon just last year. And then why now we occur in Malaysia? So that's why we need to identify, or we need to study about the affected about the typhoon and also the cyclone. So, and then of course it's occur in the South China Sea, and then will be affected especially on east coast of Malaysia, that mostly the along the east coast mostly covered by the sandy beaches and also the muddy beaches. And then 30% study by myself and also covered by JPS or DID. Almost 30% Malaysia are erosions. But how the coastal erosion can be sustained in future or due to the climate change? Okay, so the idea is we mitigate the erosion by the hard structure. The fabric structure is revetments and then more low cost, but affected on the coastal ecosystem, especially on coastal community, for fishermen, and then also for the tourisms, and also the coastal tourism. And the coastal ecosystem will be changed about the dynamic of the beach and also the coastal processes. And then the idea is we build. In Malaysia, the GPS built the breakwater of the offshore breakwater. That is very, very good ideas, but it's very expensive. Mostly we need to have a phase by phase, especially in airport of Terengganu, that since 2012 erosion are continuous until the Batu Rakit. So we make it the erosion. We make it the breakwater in front of the Tok Jembal and also the UMT Beach, and then now the second phase in the northern parts, and then sometimes we need to put the barracks like a river wrap as a ad hoc mitigations. So, but not the idea is when we protect the coastal or protect the beaches by the revetment. For example, in last week have a air pasang besar, is a very high tides, and then the revetment cannot sustain the water level, but the breakwater can sustain the and then can reduce also the wave. So by the Rai typhoon on last year, the wave outtopping will be affected or attacked along the coastline, especially in Terengganu and also the Kelantans. So the idea is when they have a breakwater, it's a good ideas. But how about only covered by the revetment? So the idea is okay. So just have an example study the different by breakwater and also revetment along the coastlines of Terengganu, Malaysia. Okay, so a part of methodology why I'm sure this in our seminar, not to identify very detailed, but this is idea what we simulate, what we identify, what we suggest on mitigations. So we doing a beach profile like a normal to monitoring, and then we make modeling by the offshore to nearshore by the mics, and then we simulate the data from the offshore to nearshore to simulate how the wave will be overtopping on the coastal or the beach by the surging, especially on Rai typhoons. Okay, so for example, I gave example just two in this our seminar because we just have 50 minutes. So the idea is when they have a breakwater and also covered by the revetment, okay, we can see a wave can reduce on the beach dune, especially on the berms area. And then also the volume of wave topping can reduce only just around 0.03 meter cube per seconds. Okay. And then how about the Pantai Surah in Dungon? So only just covered by revetment. So you can see the increasement and the differentiate between the Pantai UMT and also the Pantai Surah almost 0.5. Okay. So it can the wave topping can overtop along the roads in Pantai Surah also. Okay, and then luckily the roads is very far from the resident or the populated area. Okay, so sorry. So the idea is we make an innovation how to reduce and how to control the coastal erosion by the innovation. Our project is an e-fence that we call effective offense, and then this is proved by aerial image from Google. We plotted or we deploy this or we construct this structure since 2018, and until now I have been very successful in these our regions. Okay. So in Pantai Batu Rakit in Kuala Neros and also Pantai Madeira in Kete Paka. This is event storyline that we make an innovation from the scratch from the pilot study. That's indeed this is first of in not only in Malaysia but also in Southeast Asia. Okay, this is event storyline that covered by Awani also, and that is as an alternative by our UMT researcher to make how to control the ocean, not to solve the problem, but to control the erosion. Okay, I will be focused how the idea is for the control the erosions. Okay, so this is idea. During just 1 month, the accretion state will be occur on 10th of December, and then during just a weeks, and then erosion state almost 0.8 to 1 meter. The erosions increase, and then it slowly to recovery during some part of the wave. And how we can put the structure? So we try to make it control the natural processes of coastal erosions. Okay. And then this description of the e-fence that we call effective of sand fence is one of sustainability structure. And then the design is very, very, very meaningful, because before this we make a pilot study just a straight line or just like a normal fence. But when we engage with the communities and then also the stakeholders, actually the ideas that coastal committee, especially on the fishermen, say the wave like a woman's, don't be provoked when they angry. So we try to like tackle the woman, be slow, and they come down, and then they will be efficient. Also same like the wave. Okay, so we put in area of the mean high water and also in high oceanic tides. Okay, only just the woods, but we make it a proper woods, like I don't know in English words, but we use a seraya. Okay, seraya woods. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is how, sorry. Okay, this is idea how the sediments will be controlled when the wave attack during monsoon season, also the typhoon, also something. And then they will be blocked by the fence, not totally go out or go through the ocean or the coastal area or coastal water. And then during the calm season, the wind will be blow up to the coastal area on the beach dune. So this is process, normal process for the coastal process. So that's why we say we control the erosions, but we not we not solve totally, because we cannot solve the erosions, because this is normal natural hazard that I think almost around the world. Okay. Okay, so I think we just go forward. This is idea how we before we adapt before we mitigate, how we adapt. So this idea, the mitigation for sustainable structure, so we can adapt for fishermen, provide we can put any docks or any boats or small scale, and also conserve by marine habitat that we proven in Madeira in a sanctuary by the UF, and also enhancing the tourism sector, because this is our new landscapes for the structure. So like we call now we viral, so they can put in IG or upload in IG, and also improving the local socio-economic when the area is increased by the population. And then also the main thing is reducing and controlling the coastal erosions. Okay, so successful events, the problem with the structure, so they have a 3 point, the main things, and then semi-solution for natural expand the beach, and then reduce density and the trap resist sediment in dune formations. Okay, then the novelty and unique of the events is the first one, to capable sustain again the wave attack and also stable on the beach, and then also maintain the marine ecosystem. And then lastly, very quick installation. We can move just like a Lego. We can put in our another part of erosion when the beach is successful. Okay. Okay, this is event our pilot study. This is our research frameworks. Okay, the summary of finding that without the events, you can see here in the slides, the erosion will be high intensity of erosion, but compared to the events, that can be reduced, and also provide the model or air beach. Okay, so thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Effie, on the coverage on this very important, crucial, and I think it's a serious area for Malaysia, where you mentioned almost 30% of our coastlines are affected by coastal erosion. Again, something that's very alarming, and sometimes people that are not from the field would probably not know that this is happening in our coastlines and affecting our coastal ecosystems and resources and so on. So thank you again for that. We will now open the floor for questions. We heard briefly from Professor Kazuo Nadaoka on the regional aspects of blue carbon and the efforts and projects that are ongoing. We then heard from Dr. Suchana on coral reef ecosystems at the national and local levels, as well as from Dr. Effie on the local initiatives and also some of the technical aspects that are involved on the ground to address this issue. I would now open the floor to question. Anybody would like to, any comments or any questions, please go ahead. Yes, please, sir.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I just would like to know two things. First of all, let me introduce myself. I think I failed to do that the earlier section. I am First Admiral Panir Selvan from the Royal, I used to say Royal Malaysian Navy because I was in the Royal Malaysian Navy for 27 years. So now I'm with the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency, which is also known as Malaysian Coast Guard. I'm from the HQ, and thank you for inviting MMEA to participate in this forum. My question is that, or not even a question yet, let me tell you why I wanted to say. First of all, does this IU fishing affect the climate change? Okay, to give you a heads up on that, to me, I would say yes. I think Dr. Noraini will agree with me if she's also into IU fishing studies and all these things. So why? Because when the fishing trawlers, they trawl in our seabed, they also destroy our corals. Which is, I'm not sure how many of us are aware of this thing. Unless you are on the ground, you may not have this information. So whenever we catch, we detain the fishing boat, especially the fishing boat under the category of IU fishing, we found that they have actually damaged a lot of our corals in our seabed. Okay, that's one thing. Second is that about the reclaim, I mentioned earlier, we have sand mining operation. Why they do sand mining? Because they want to reclaim areas at sea. So to how extent does the reclaim activity done in Malaysia, especially in the east, mostly on the west side of Malacca Strait, affects or contribute to the environmental protection of erosion? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the very important questions. Now, direct and indirect effects from some of these activities you have rightly pointed out. IUU fishing and its direct or indirect, impact on coral reefs and then to climate change and so on. I think this would be a suitable question to pose to Dr. Kazuo and also Dr. Suchana, please. The effects from IUU fishing when there is, maybe certain gears used and so on, trawl and so on, that destroys the coral reefs, which then again brings in an impact, in the sense of climate change is already there and these are anthropogenic pressures that are put into this. Would you like to answer that, please?
Baseline is such a how can I say, devastating the fishing practice. For example, trawling, that is a typical. That is, of course, a very, very badly affects the bottom benthic habitats, including corals, sometimes seagrasses. Yeah, that is quite obvious. We have to properly control that. And also, in the coral reef areas, we still can observe, yeah, illegal fishing. That is a blasting or dynamite fishing. Still, that is, of course, illegal, prohibited by law, but still ongoing. Yeah, you can see some sites in the rural areas. Yeah, we have to properly control that as well. That is quite obvious. Regarding the possible impacts of the reclamation on the adjacent ecosystem or sedimentary processes, yeah, that is another local impacts, possible impacts. Yeah, for example, if you construct a reclaimed area at some site along the beach coast, then it may affect, yeah, the sedimentary processes. Yeah, generally speaking, sedimentary processes along the beach is under the dynamic equilibrium situation. Otherwise, you have to face the erosion or accretion due to the imbalance, yeah, in equilibrium situation. So constructing the hard structures, yeah, jetty, growlands, and others, and also sometimes the detached breakwater and reclamation areas. That is a kind of man-made blockage, yeah, blockage of the alongshore sediment transport, right? Therefore, in the resultant tree in these all the surrounding areas, you will have accretion or erosion, yeah. That is the result of the causing such a blockage function, yeah, man-made blockage functions, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Suchana, please.
Yeah, well, actually, I totally agree with you that, yeah, there's a linkage between IUU fishing's climate change and then also biodiversity. Actually, right now I'm in Busan. We now as a working groups, GSAMs that, you know, are sponsored by the UN system, we were talking about the marine debris that, you know, linkage. We're talking about fishery, IUU fishings that link together, not just only create the marine debris, but also the climate change in terms of indirect, because, you know, all those factories that produce the net, fishing nets, you know, can cause those climate change. So yeah, there are a linkage on that. But now it's up to us whether what we're gonna do, so, you know, how we gonna care and how we interpret whether there is a risk or not risk on those activities to link to the climate change. So that's what I would like to comment. But yeah, I totally agree on that.
Very nicely put. Those are some of the concerns that we have to look into. I would like to pose a question, Dr. Effie. The second part, do you in Terengganu also try to look into, you know, linking sand mining and coastal erosion as such?
Yeah, thank you for the good question. Yeah, about the sand mining and also the beach nourishment or reclamation. The idea is the main thing, we take a sand anywhere because about the cost, because the costing. But actually, we just gazetted 5 kilometer for the buffer zone in the land area, but we not gazetted in the coastal water. I think the Mima from this seminar can highlight about this. Okay, the idea is we need to study the depth of closure first, DOC. So almost in Terengganu, the coastline, around 5 to 10 kilometers from the coastal water or from the waterline, we cannot take any kind of the sand because they will be changed the sediment transport and also the drift. So how idea is when we change or we changing the depth of closure or the depth of bathymetry in there. So it can be created a different of wave breaker and then increase more kind of the wave topping. So the idea is from this seminar, maybe we can highlight it and we can highlight in our kind of ministry to which part we cannot take for the sand mining because they will be changed anything not on erosion but also the ecosystem. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Effie. I hope that answered your question, sir. I will quickly take one final question before we wrap up from online.
Oh.
I'll keep you for a moment, Prof. There is a question for Dr. Suchana specifically. The question from the participant says that you are using certain methodologies for coral replanting. Would there be any adverse alternative impacts from this plastic use or those methodologies that you're using on the ground, so the metal and the plastics and so on, would that be hazardous as a secondary impact on the environment? Can you take that, please?
Okay. Thank you very much. And actually, in terms of the restoration technique right now, we have to be very careful too, because the marine debris, the marine plastic particularly, that can be generated by the restoration activity. So yes, for example, in Thailand right now, in the past, we used the PVC pipe a lot. And we know now PVC pipe can generate microplastic, right? So it has been stopping and reducing those kind of materials. And I believe that in other countries, they're also doing the same thing, because we want to make sure that if we're gonna do restoration, we don't want to have or increase any more effects to the ecosystem. But yes, thank you for raising this issue. And actually, we are now aware of it, and we try to reduce all those impacts.
Thank you, Dr. Suchana. In fact, those are some of the emerging areas that we're talking about, solving environmental issues and not posing new challenges on the environment as we do that. Prof, I will give you the floor now to go ahead. You'll be the final question or comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Cheryl. My question goes to Prof. Suchana. Hi, Suchana, I hope you still remember me. Temperature is continue to rise. The hope is that the world will be able to mitigate and reduce the greenhouse gas emission. But the fact is, the challenge is there. As I mentioned, by 2030, the reduction has to be 100%. Now, I'm talking about what is actually our prospect, our future when it comes to coral reef. As temperatures getting warmer and warmer, there will be more marine heat and more El Nino. There has been a study showing that El Nino, extreme El Nino, like 2015, 2016, and 98, those will become more frequent in the future. One event like that can wipe out the Great Barrier Reef. So what is our future actually if we are not able to, reduce this emission and we're getting more marine heat? What is our future? Does the things like what you do, replanting this coral, can save the coral that we have in this region?
Thank you, Prof. That is a very important question. Dr. Suchana, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And actually, thank you for bringing a very such a excellent questions on that. I would like to tell that restoration is just only one of the techniques that can help, just only part of the coral degradation. We definitely cannot be able to do, a big mass of the area to restore coral back. And yes, you are right. Right now, we compete with not just only the climate change. In case of coral, we use coral a lot. Human activities, that also the main factor that contribute to the declining of the coral. So we not just only have to cut or reduce the CO2, we have to cut and reduce all those other impact too. And it have to be as soon as possible, because we're not sure, tell you the truth, in the next 10 years, if we not try to do it or cut it very hard, I'm afraid to say that, we would not have a good coral reef. Like right now, I'm not sure in the Malaysia situation, but in Thailand situation, less than about 10% of the coral reef area that we consider in a very excellent conditions. 90% is, is in a normal or in a bad condition. So unfortunately, if we not try to help everything, we will end up losing most of the coral, I have to say. Sorry that, it's a little bit negative, but it's now getting closer and closer though.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suchana, for that. Let me thank all the speakers once again. It has been fantastic to have all three of you, Professor Kazuo Nadaoka, Dr. Suchana Chavanish, as well as Dr. Effie. You have covered a wide range of area. I just wish we had a bit more time. Discussions were getting interesting, but nevertheless, that sheds a pathway or the dialogue for further exploration and discussion as well as collaboration perhaps. If I may just take the last minute to sum up and give you some points to further ponder upon or think further on this subject area. Now, ladies and gentlemen, adaptive capacity and resilience, when we talk about ecosystem, resources and so on, it's the ability, we have to understand, it's the ability for us to adapt, conduct a sum of actions to change behavior perhaps, shift priorities, produce necessary goods and services, and also to plan and respond in ways that will reduce these harmful climate change impacts that we are all talking about. Now, these are some of the key dimensions that has been highlighted at this session as well as the previous session as a basis for further planning, further discussion, as well as to further mainstream this into climate change adaptations and sectoral plannings. Now, some of the key areas that we've heard is to better prepare from disasters and so on. We saw that, coastal erosion and etc. Investing in nature-based solutions, we saw mangroves, we saw efforts in coral reefs and so on. Improving security in the sense of there were quite a number of questions from MMEA on these aspects. Building climate resilient infrastructures when we talk about adaptation and resilience, as well as access to new technology, capacity building and so on. Now, these are areas that we should perhaps further discuss and so on. I will leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you once again for your active participation, and thank you all speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Kazuo Nadaoka, Dr. Suchana Chavanish, and Dr. Effie Helmi that is here with us physically today for the insightful sharing, as well as Ms. Chararita Kaur for the fruitful and productive deliberations. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our final agenda for today, I would like to call upon on stage our senior fellow, Ms. Sumati Permal, to deliver her closing remarks as well as to conclude today's event. Please welcome Ms. Sumati Permal.
Thank you, Ms. Arlis, for the kind introduction. I know that I'm just standing between you, lunch, and the most importantly, Friday prayers. So I'll make it very short. Honorable participants, ladies and gentlemen, Salam Sejahtera. The seminar on enhancing resilience for sustainable ocean in the Indo-Pacific, interventions and opportunities will conclude soon. It is MIMA's great honor to spend the morning with 2 sessions and exchanging views across the Indo-Pacific region experts. First and foremost, I would like to convey my highest gratitude to the Embassy of Japan in Malaysia for your continuous support and trust in MIMA's research and activities. It has been an honor and pleasure for MIMA to work cooperatively with the Embassy of Japan in Malaysia. My deepest appreciation also goes to all participants who have attended the seminar physically and virtually and helped to make it a successful event. We are glad to have participating, highlighting the strong interest of various stakeholders in the maritime sector to achieve a resilient and sustainable ocean in the Indo-Pacific. A cordial and warm appreciation also goes to all stakeholders, experts and participants for persistently supporting the move towards a sustainable and resilient oceans. Ladies and gentlemen, for this, I would also like to take a moment to thank the Secretariat, the researchers, and everyone in the room and outside who have contributed to the success of this seminar. With that, I would like to once again thank everyone for your active participation. Till we meet again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and please join us for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sumati. Now we have come to the end of our program for today. The Maritime Institute of Malaysia appreciates enthusiastic speakers and moderators, as well as the participants for attending today's seminar on enhancing resilience for sustainable ocean in the Indo-Pacific, interventions and opportunities. We believe the seminar will not be a success without all of your presence in today's program. We hope everyone has benefited from the sharing session. For those who are here physically, we would like to invite you for lunch provided at the lower ground. And to those who attended virtually, we hope to see you again in the upcoming MIMAS program. Thank you once again for making this event a memorable one. Have a safe journey home and take care. Goodbye and have a nice weekend, everyone.